Hello, I'd like to present a video blog, something I was thinking about just a few moments ago as I was resting and sleeping. Sometimes I get up in the middle of the night and sometimes I have different ideas and I normally write this down in my notebook, but I like to keep it as a video blog. Um, I'm in my 60s now, actually approaching 63. I'm in my bedclothes. Although I have a lot of great ideas for developing different types of programs, AI programs and other programs, um, I seem to have a different attitude as to how I take to developing this or whether to develop it. Because recently I tried to build two gamer motherboards to develop an AI module where basically you had four graphic card processors that would be linked together that give about 5,200 cores for an AI processor. And then when I ran it difficult, I saw on Amazon that basically you can buy what's called a data miner extender card where you can hook six of them together daisy chained to do this. Um, even though I have two graphic cards, even though I can get the two cards for $15 each, and then the six, basically come out to $90 or built enclosure will come out to 159. I still don't have the same enthusiasm that I used to have like when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and even in my early 50s like that though. It's some may say it feels like depression, but it's not really quite depression because it goes back to something that I realized sort of at the big thing last year like that though, even when I started sewing during COVID. Um, a lot of my career, at one point in my life, what happened was when I was in college and heavily studying pre-med and computer science, my recreation became work, became study, became research. It wasn't golf, it wasn't playing football, it wasn't playing basketball. It was basically either writing code, thinking about code, or thinking about research, doing research. That's just the way some people sort of feel that basically you live to work and then you sleep and then you live to work again. And well, last year basically I ran into a very tough time where basically I was faced with the challenge about that. Well, do I really want to have my life be considered that just basically it's just my life is research or my life is open source where basically um, I'm valued because basically I put software as open source and people get I'm kind enough to put software in open source for people to use and they use it for free or have pirates that stole two programs from me. What I did was last year I finally decided, well, I'll put some of it on the cloud to protect it, which I did, and that was to, but also made me think about how I'm doing things too, because although the creativity is still there to do different AI programs, I have some different things on how to modify certain programs I do to make it solve modern AI needs. It's like, do I agree? The impetus to do is not as great as it was when I was much younger, in my 20s to my 50s, because in my 20s, 50s, I really didn't think about some things. I just would do it. Like even when I applied for jobs, like I didn't think about who I was going to be working with. I didn't think about the team. I just interested in doing the job. It's like, well, oh, this is a great challenge. Like when I worked in the FACS lab and as a medical researcher for an activated cell sorter lab, as a manager. It's great working with great medical research machines, Baxter Plus, HP 9000, new type of shipboard computing back then. I didn't think of really the team that I was working with, even though it's a team I just considered a lab ape, or basically an ape tech, because basically they considered, um, I had a biomedical degree and that stuff because I didn't do quite the bench work they did. Um, I sort of was looked down upon, but that's why when I realized when I started to work second time in California in the West Coast. That's when I realized there's a different life. And even last year, I realized that I moved to a different point in my life too, like that though. So um, I have some ideas, I have some things, but basically, I think more about some other things though, because some of the things like I do on a daily basis. So I have a Barbie collection, and like when I talk with Annette always reminds me, says, "Well, it's about 9 o'clock. Make sure you put the Barbies to bed." And I put the Barbies to bed 9 o'clock, and then we get up about maybe like about 10 o'clock in the morning or something. Some days it's just in pajamas. Some days formally dressed, um, but basically it's a form of play, um, and I've been getting more back to play because I'm realizing now that coding for me is no longer play. Research and development is no longer play. I used to consider play even up to my 50s, but it's no longer play. I enjoy basically doing sewing, making a pouch. I made a pouch for net. This is an example one. And also I'm making net a sand top to make a skirt, match a skirt that I made a net about a month ago. Um, and even with the Barbies are a good form of play too. As many people and adults have found out that since the Barbie movie, there's been an increase of adults who openly admit that they do play with the Barbies too. It's not just as a child anymore, and even if and it's not just related to one gender or another gender. I mean, even before I transitioned, I had Barbies, I had GI Joe, I had a Karate Ken, that went like this. You push it back to the karate chop. And I remember one time when I J. Joe had a parachute kit. I remember my grandmother made a parachute for the Barbies, so both of them could parachute together. So I stand on front porch and throw them off the front porch and watch them parachute and stuff like that. Though simple fun, and that's what I'm sort of realizing now. And that though is I have a lot of great ideas. I do can write a lot of code. And even 2 weeks ago on a lark, I wrote a program to rate defensive football players, and basically just done it just as a lark, just to see basically how easy or hard it was. I used a small language model that I developed when I developed many of my AI programs in the 80s and the 90s. It still is applicable today. I contacted a local football team. I thought there'd be great interest in this because um, there are things about how do you rate players in different positions other than just only having a quarterback rating. How do you have like a running back rating, defensive back rating, linebacker rating? And I thought, well, contact the local football team, and I was hoping to hear anything. I didn't hear a single thing, and it's like basically it's a very creative thing for me. But the thing is, um, I don't want to just make stuff and just have to say, well, the only way people will want to use it unless I put an open source and they don't have to pay me and other stuff. And it's like I I I prefer to have some sort of recognition other than people only use stuff if I put it out there for free or they can steal a demo or steal a code. I rather not. I rather not get. I rather end that part of my. I rather not follow that part of my life anymore like that. Though just being a tool, being thought of as a research tool, or anything else. That's why. Um, a few moments ago, I held on. That's why I'm coined this blog is because basically it's. I prefer basically sort of what I'm doing now. I go to lunch with friends. We're like this morning we're going to go for lunch, and then on Friday we're going to go shopping for a new mattress, and also shopping for shoes like that, getting new shoes like that though and stuff. But I do simple things. Also little sewing projects like that though. I try some ideas out. Making some pouches, making some purses, making some tops, and even some doll clothes like that though. Also playing with the Barbies. I enjoy watching some of the technology stuff on YouTube, other sewing stuff on YouTube. I really think as far as education, I think YouTube and things like Skillshare are really the way to go for education because of the way student debt is now. That's the easiest way for someone to get enough skills that they can get educated and they can start working without the massive student debt. And even tonight, before I went to bed, I was watching the National, and they're talking about the unemployment and functional employment rate. Well, the unemployment rate is about 4.2%. The functional unemployment rate is 28%. What does that mean? Well, the unemployment rate means is those are the number of percentage of working people who are not working at least 1 hour a day and not getting paid. So that's 4%. But the functional unemployment rate are those who may be working a part-time job, working a gig job, most essentially getting paid as a single person under $25,000 a year, which in Wisconsin actually as a single person to live without apartment subsidy you have to make at least 42,000. So when you think about the functional unemployment is 7 times the unemployment rate, and then I saw an article just before I went to bed about computer science graduates, where computer science graduates now have an unemployment rate equivalent to used to be like people who went into liberal arts and what some people would call non-essential degrees, where the computer science unemployment rate is about 9%. So if you multiply that by 7, the functional unemployment rate is 63%. And this is something that my dad and I talked about because this is why I transitioned from fields as well like that. Because in college I was in pre-med, um, computer science, EECS, engineering, computer science, biomedical engineering, and then I worked as a medical research, but then eventually I transitioned into going into business, running one of the family businesses as apartment owner, a landlord of a 4 unit building, owner occupied. We lived in one of the apartments, and my dad's hoping I could do that for a long time, but economic conditions changed in the 90s. With different types of immigration, the effect of NAFTA, with loss of manufacturing and other stuff. So um, then basically I moved into being a consultant and also worked in retail for quite a bit. At the time that I worked in retail, my dad was concerned because he said, "Well, he's concerned. Well, you're a professional, but you work in retail." And he said, "Well, you're becoming a working man." And it's like, well, we need to do that to save the house. But the main thing I remember about working retail is the people I met. I met a lot of people who I became friends with, and I'm still friends with today. They still work at the same store. They used to work at Roundy's Pick and Save. And I remember when my dad died, how much everyone came together because it was a very tough time for my mother and me, and they helped us with surviving the first 3 months. So basically, we didn't go through a major crash. And I'm always grateful for the people and that, and also of the UCFW Local 1144 who came through and helped us during that time like that, though. And this is what the thought that I have, though. I like developing things. I like doing stuff, but I don't like being used as a tool. I don't like being used as an as an ape tech or a lab ape, as they used to say in Milwaukee at the research park. Some of the abusive women researchers used to say that, and even some people I worked with. Um, that part of my life is over. I really don't want to get into it. I get calls to write papers all the time for AI conferences. Sometimes I think about it, and then that says, no, it says, don't do it. Part of your life is over. Just enjoy the time which I'm doing. And the reason why I'm making this blog is because for some of those friends who are in their late 20s, 30s, and even some in their 40s, have a balance because you may think that you know getting things and working more and more to pay for these things are great, but I saw an interesting YouTube video which I'll post a little bit later. It's about one person talked about living a slower life, sort of like where she takes time to actually read a printed book, and not to go as to how many books she can read, but how many books can the ideas can get to her, and also lighting in the journal, and even keeping a house basically sort of in a unlarged unavailable moment because she mentioned like what she said about with today's society, everyone has to always be available. You have to answer on the first call on your phone. You have to answer text. You have to answer this. And that's why with my apartment, I've kept my apartment stuff as a '90s apartment. I don't have Alexa. I don't have Siri. I have YouTube. I have some technology, but I keep it in a way that's in the '90s. Basically, I use it for a little bit, then I can turn it off. It's even like basically how many people used to use the internet. Um, I didn't have a computer in my bedroom all during the '90s, and actually we had in the library study, so which was right next to the living room. So when I'd use it, and even sometimes when my dogs were alive, if I started to use it too much, my dogs would come up and tap me on the leg like, well, it's time to take a break or something like that, and I think that's the thing of what I'm thinking about now. It's like I can try to do research and development at the pace I used to do and get back to, but I prefer mostly to do like I'm doing now. Just think about ideas, write down some ideas, but as far as the emphasis just to do research and development for research development, develop something that might become a white elephant. The only way someone's going to use it unless I put it on open source or unless I someone gives someone a demo and someone steals the demo. No, I don't want to get into that. That's a form of life that's over, and that's why I prefer having lunch with friends, meeting friends. Also, having more time playing with the Barbies, doing sewing, watching some YouTube videos, and even just enjoy walking a little bit and some simple things. Um, and the point is, what I'm trying to say is, you know, make time to play. But remember, don't. It's not coding is not play. If you work as a coder, and you say, "Well, I'm going to do some recreational coding." Coding is not play because even like on the old Star Trek, when my parents survived, one time we were watching an old Star Trek episode, and Spock's parents were visiting the ship, and his mother's Spock responds, "Oh, Spock, are you doing recreational coding again?" And you have to remember in the '60s, basically, many people did what's called recreational drug use, and well, recreational coding is very much like recreational drug use because you build endorphins, you get endorphins, keep you going. Get once you do more, and eventually you just conk out or you drop different things or don't taking care of yourself or other stuff. And that's why in the '60s, a culture that's highly logical, mathematical, they realized that no, the way you relax is you don't do recreational coding if you're a coder, or you don't do recreational science if you're a scientist. You do something completely different. That's why I do sewing because sewing is completely different. I never worked as a seamstress. I do it as a hobby. And you know, like when I play my Barbies, this is before basically I even started to get into computers. I had a doll collection. I played my doll collection, and when my grandmother died, she gave me her doll collection. It's a series of different porcelain dolls from the old country. But when the house was foreclosed upon, I wasn't able to keep it. But it's very special clothing that was made and everything else. And so the thing is, what I'm trying to say is basically make some time for play. You don't always have to be available. You don't, and also you don't always have to buy stuff to show people that you're trying to keep up and that you're successful. Because the more you buy, the more you have to work to pay for it. It's eventually getting to the point that where you realize you have enough that you don't need to work more to pay for what you have, and that's where I'm at. I have everything I have is paid for. Um, there's some things I don't have. I don't have a car because basically, I don't want to get to the high cost of maintaining it and also having, again, to get back into a certain aspect of my life I don't want to get back into. And with my health, I can't like that though and stuff. So make time to play. And when I consider my parents in the '90s, we used to watch reruns of Guy Lombardo on PBS. And one time I was watching an episode of Guy Lombardo, and um, I asked my dad, "So that's strange. Normally his brother sings in the show. Why is he singing?" He says, "Well, Because he is concerned at the time that the show is being filmed that basically his brother's getting into a bad habit of singing. So what he did was he had him go back in the band and play in the band so that he could unlearn the bad habits. So take time to take a pause and learn, and that's what I've been doing. I've been taking a pause. That's why I really haven't written a new book in a while. I haven't written a new code in a while. I'm taking a pause because last year I realized that if I just try to just do like I did before, basically thinking that coding is recreation, coding is play, I could have someone come in and try to swoop in on me and catch me blindfolded, which I almost happened, and that sort of made me think, and that's why I'm still in a pause. So I do more play things like that though, and I think it's important. The other thing to remember though too is in the '90s, there's also a series that was made is about a couple that are in the '60s as as time goes by. It's about basically it starred Dame Judy Trench, and I forgot who the actor was, but it's about a couple that they had a thriving consulting business in London, and on the weekends they'd actually get out of London and go out to the country just to slow down and live a casual life among in a village, and a lot of times they run into some of their friends from London who try to seek them out while they're in the field to say, well, I got this great idea. I'd like to do this. What do you think? Can we talk about? And a lot of times what they say was, I get back to the office on Monday. Why don't you call me up on Monday? Says, well, I'm out here now. Can we talk about? Said, no. This is our time to wind down and relax. So if you want to talk about, if you're here just to visit and join us on barbecue or join us for drinks, you're welcome. But no business, not until Monday morning. And that's what I'm sort of realizing now like that though. So basically, it took me a while to understand it, but now I do. And so with some of my research and development, I write notes down, but I really just I don't have the blind impetus and the blind ambition just to jump into it like I did when I was young, and I'm glad I don't. So, um, well, let me know what you think. I know this seems a little bit long, and maybe you may not agree with it. You may think I'm sort of partially depressed, but I don't think I am depressed. I think I'm wiser. If my parents were alive, they'd say, well, actually, you're wiser because you realize that basically recreational coding is not play. You got to do something that's play, even as an adult. So, well, let me know what you think. And the best way, as I have always said, is you can reach me on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Pinterest. Well, this is the conclusion of my video blog on regarding my new life balance now, and I came to realization that, and I'm hoping that, and what I wanted to share with others. Thank you again for listening.